From getting away with injuries to being stranded in freezing water, here are some athletes who defied death more than once, starting with Travis Pastrana. When he was still a teenager, he tried to land a 120-foot jump but bailed.
Go back for more.
He suffered a horrible injury that separated his spine from his pelvis. Only 3 people in history are known to have had this kind of injury, and 2 of them were left paralyzed. Remarkably, he walked again. He started riding again as soon as he could. Even though that kind of injury is painful enough to last a lifetime, Pastrana has been in even more accidents that almost killed him. In 2003, he and some friends crashed the car they were driving with such speed that Pastrana was thrown out of his seat. Matthew Bigos was in the passenger seat and he was paralyzed, but Pastrana survived. It was a miracle. Speaking of miracles, no one expected this next athlete to recover from his injury at all. But it looks like water is both Isakias Quiros' friend and enemy. Anyone who wins an Olympic medal is impressive, but Quiros is even more so because he did it after a very hard childhood. When he was only 3 years old, a pot of boiling water fell on him. The doctors weren't optimistic about his chances of getting better, but he did. He wasn't out of danger yet, though. He was even kidnapped later and had to have a kidney replaced. Despite all the trouble and injury, he was able to steer his canoe to the medals platform.
100 meters, big paddle here, fantastic from the reigning world champion, Quiros dos Santos. He takes the gold.
While I'm talking about impossible survival chances, I should talk about the athlete with 9 lives. Matt Hawksley is more of a tri-athlete than a triathlete. I'm pretty sure that he's actually a cat. He's been close to dying 8 times, which is crazy. He's done it all. Broken his neck, spine, and multiple heart failures in a row. On the way to the hospital, he had to be resuscitated an amazing 4 times. Doctors told his family that he'll probably spend the rest of his life in a wheelchair and might never be able to speak again. Hawksley was lucky that a crucial spine surgery proved these early predictions wrong, and he was able to move again.
In a way, I'm glad it's happened to me because I know full well in myself I'm capable.
But while he was getting better, he came down with pneumonia and MRSA, both of which can be life-threatening. As if that wasn't bad enough, he later got cancer too. Hawksley not only beat that, but he also went back to his sport. Speaking of crazy accidents, this next athlete's body seems to be made of steel, because even after everything he went through, he managed to survive. Matt Hoffman went 22 feet and still had 20 minutes left. In 1993, Hoffman built a 21-foot half-pipe and rode his bike down it with a motor from a weed eater. This was one of the scariest things he ever did. Of course, he crashed. He soon found out that the crash had torn his spleen. He passed out while waiting for help because he was so sick and dizzy. When he finally got to the hospital, doctors told Hoffman that he had so much internal bleeding that he only had about 20 minutes to live. He got better, but was just one of more than 24 surgeries he's had in his career. He was also close to dying when he wasn't trying to make a bicycle fly. In 2007, a semi-truck even ran into him at 50 miles per hour, but he still made it. Here's another race car driver with injuries to his name. AJ Foyt drove his car into a dark part of history. Going around a track at breakneck speeds can be dangerous. In 1965, Foyt's brakes failed during a NASCAR race. He went into the infield and then down an embankment.
AJ Foyt looks like he's lost his brakes.
Flipping his car over and over for hundreds of feet. Foyt wasn't breathing when paramedics got to him, but they were able to bring him back to life and get him to a hospital. 7 years later, he stopped to quickly fill up his gas tank, but the hose came loose and 2 gallons of nitro fuel went all over his head. The driver thought it'd go away, but it didn't have a chance to, because after he got back in the race, an exhaust pipe spit out fire, setting Foyt on fire. He tried to jump out of the car and run to an infield lake, but the car was still moving, and one of the wheels ran over Foyt's left foot and flipped him over while he was still on fire. His father ran up with a fire extinguisher and helped put out the fire. Don't even bring up the subject of killer bees with him. Foyt's been attacked by swarms of the mean bugs, not once, but twice. Everyone knows this next guy is big and tough, so it makes sense that he pulled through even after what happened to him. But this battle wasn't with an external injury. Brock Lesnar's biggest fight was with a GI disease. It started with stomach pain throughout 2009. The pain got worse during a hunting trip in rural Manitoba in November 2009, which was a scary moment. In the middle of the night and several hours away from people, Lesnar described it like being shot in the stomach. After a trip to a small hospital with bad equipment didn't help, Lesnar went to North Dakota. That's where a doctor told him he had an infected GI tract. Doctors wanted to get rid of the damaged part of Lesnar's colon, but he said he needed to train for his title defense match against Shane Carwin.
In the mixed martial arts world. It is all over! It is all over! Wow! Lesnar is the undisputed!
So he said no. In 2011, Lesnar got diverticulitis again, and this time he had to have surgery. Doctors took about 12 inches of his colon and did a great job fixing him up. So far, the accidents have been pretty much in the realm of possibility. But I'll be real when I say that this next one takes the cake. It's about the time things got chilly for Rulon Gardner. Greco-Roman wrestling isn't the most exciting sport, but Gardner made history at the Summer Olympics in 2000.
Rulon Gardner is ahead in this match. The American is stunning this Russian wrestler.
The American wrestler won a gold medal by beating the Russian wrestler, Alexander Karelin. That guy had never lost a match and had won 9 world titles and 3 Olympic gold medals. 4 years after that, in his Greco-Roman event, Gardner won a bronze medal. Gardner's highs are great, but his lows are very bad. During a snowmobiling trip in Wyoming in February 2002, he got stuck. When his snowmobile got stuck in a gully, it broke through a snow shelf and fell into a river. He tried to get out, but as night fell, he drove off another cliff. Before a rescue team found Gardner just after dawn the next day, he'd been out in the cold for a total of 17 hours. It's just like every other survival movie, except this was real life. His core body temperature dropped to 80 degrees, and he lost a toe to frostbite. In February 2007, Gardner went through another hard time in the western wilderness when it was below zero. He was in a small plane with 2 friends that was flying over Good Hope Bay on the border of Utah and Arizona. The pilot lost control and crashed into the water. Gardner and his friends had to swim for more than an hour in water that was almost freezing. When they got to land, they had to spend the night without a shelter or a campfire. They were saved by a fisherman in the morning. He said he felt real lucky after surviving everything he had. Yeah, dude, you best believe it. That's all for athletes who defied death more than once.